Hey there, Practice of the Practice community. Are you ready to take your private practice to the next level? Then mark your calendars for September 16th through 19th, 2024, because Level Up Week is back and bigger than ever. Insert rocket emoji here. Join us for 4 days of live webinars, interactive panels, and exclusive resources tailored just for counselors, therapists, and private practice owners. Whether you're looking to fill your caseload, hire your first clinician, or scale your group practice, we've got you covered. This is your chance to level up while others give up. Don't miss out on this game-changing event. Register now at practiceofthepractice.com/level up and get ready to transform your practice. Remember, September 16th through 19th, Level Up Week, your ticket to practice success. Register today and let's level up together. practiceofthepractice.com/level up. This is the Practice of the Practice podcast with Joe Samak, session number 1071. I'm Joe Samak, your host, and welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast. I think it's Jerry Seinfeld who has a stand-up bit about how people's thing that they're most scared about is public speaking. And behind that is death. And so speaking at a funeral is worse for people than actually being in the casket. For me, I don't know where it happened. I was in the Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts, and we had lots of opportunities that we had to speak in front of small groups or larger groups. And I was drawn to student council in high school. And public speaking has been something that definitely, it made me nervous, but it wasn't like, oh my gosh, I can't believe what's happening. This is so hard. I black out. But it's definitely something I wasn't good at. It wasn't something that came natural. I had to really practice quite a bit. And I don't know about you, but a lot of people are really, really scared to speak publicly. One of the things that we have most of our members do when they join Next Level Practice, Group Practice Launcher, Group Practice Boss is to just post a video saying, hi, here's who I am. Here's what my practice is about. And we do that for a couple of reasons. We think it's a little more personal, but also to get people used to posting content online. And for a lot of people, that's their very first time posting videos in a professional setting online, other than just, vacation photos or things like that. And so it's one of those things that we have a whole lot of people in this community that fall on that spectrum from being very comfortable speaking to not being super comfortable with it. But it's one of those things that kind of no matter what, as a therapist, we may be asked to do public speaking, to have confidence in our speaking. And that's why I'm so excited to have Linda Ugelow, who is a speaking confidence coach, podcast host, and author today here on the podcast. She's the author of Delight in the Limelight, Overcome Your Fear of Being Seen and Realize Your Dream. Also, she's cultivated a dedicated TikTok following of over 150,000 through engaging and relatable content, and is the host of the podcast and live show Delight in the Limelight, where she continues to inspire and empower individuals on their journey to confident self-expression. Linda, welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast.
Nice to be here, Joe.
Yeah, well, you haven't always delighted in the limelight. Tell me about your non-delighting in the limelight times of your life.
It's interesting because I've been a performer. I was a performer for 40 years with a women's world music group, and I was the principal dancer. I sang, but I hated having to introduce a song. That was what would throw me into a panic. And I didn't really think much about it because I thought, I'll just white knuckle through this. A lot of times I'd mess up on my pieces ahead of time if I knew, the one I have to introduce is coming up in 4 more songs. And the 4 songs preceding that, I'd keep making mistakes because I'd be thinking about, oh my God, I'm going to have to speak. And it was interesting, looking back, I was involved in expressive arts therapy, and I taught a lot of dance therapy-like classes, something called authentic movement. And looking back, I realized I was always anxious, even leading a group of 3 people. And it wasn't, though, until, I mostly just was able to avoid it. I had like a lot of people, you might have had a bad speaking experience. I had one in grad school where my mouth got so dry and no words came out. And I didn't prepare because I didn't know how to prepare. So I was unprepared on top of that. And it was dreadful. And I thought, I'll never speak again in public. And I didn't for 15 years. And then something happened in my life where I really, really, really wanted to get a message out about something, which happened to be legalizing raw milk in the state of Massachusetts. And I reached out to the local organic farming association and I said, I think I think there are a lot of people like me who want to be able to buy raw milk legally. And I think we should and can get our regulations changed. And the director said, that is a great idea. I think there's going to be a lot of interest in this. Why don't you give a little presentation, just 90 seconds, before the keynote speaker at the summer conference? There'll be about 1,200 people there. And this was like the first thing after my disaster 15 years earlier. And I said, I can't do that because I just froze last time I tried to speak in public. And she said, you'll be fine, Linda. Just write it out. It's okay if you're shaky. Just read what you wrote on the paper. And so that's what I did. I got up there and I read what I wrote. There was a lot of resonance. 2.5 years later, we have the first licensed dairy in Massachusetts legally selling raw milk, and now we have 23. So that was a great experience to show me that even if you're nervous, you can still make an impact. However, it didn't do anything about my nerves. And it wasn't until I became an online coach. I was going to be teaching and working with people about stress, overcoming stress, that I realized I needed to be in front of people. If I wanted to build a clientele, a following, I needed to show up. And this was back in 2015. Periscope came out with a first live stream app. And I was taking a video class at the time. My teacher said, you got to get out on Periscope and you got to get on every day and talk to people every day to build a following. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do this. So I downloaded the app and, typed in what I was going to talk about. I pressed broadcast and all these people started to come in like from India and California and France and Texas and all over. And as the people started to roll in, I felt like I started to become disembodied. I was so terrified, but I sat down and I spoke and I just thought, don't delete it. Just leave it up. It's only up for 24 hours. It's okay. And I just figured, I'm going to do this because I'm sure after a couple of weeks, I'm going to feel fine. And in the meantime, I'll manage this. I looked up how to overcome my fear and I did deep breathing and meditation and affirmations and power poses, whatever you could think of. I tried it. And then I was managing it. So every day I was getting on Periscope. I was doing my thing. And I got to about, I think it was week 10, 75 days in. I'm about to press broadcast. And I'm noticed my heart is racing. And I'm thinking, why is my heart racing? I've been doing this for 10 weeks every single day. What's wrong with me? And I sat down to consider this because I thought, here I am, I'm managing it, I'm showing up every day, but I don't want to have to manage it. I think I was spending like 30 to 45 minutes just like getting myself calmed down in order to be on Periscope for 5 or 10 minutes. So I thought, I want to get rid of this. I don't know how, but I want to get rid of this. I don't want to manage it. I just want it gone. I made a long list of different things that I had come across in my graduate program in expressive arts therapy, all the self-help I had done. I'd been in therapy myself. And I had this robust list. I looked at it and I thought, I know something's going to work here. But you know what? Before I try to get rid of the fear, what is this fear about? So I closed my eyes and I said, if the fear could talk, what would it say? And what came back was, you're going to be attacked. And all of a sudden, I had all of these memories. Foremost in my mind were my sisters, how they used to attack me whenever my mom put me on a pedestal saying, why can't you girls be more like Linda? She does what I tell her to do. I never have to ask her twice. So mom would leave the room. My sisters would charge and kick me in the shins and say, shut up, stupid. And then I realized, of course I'm not comfortable being the center of attention because I learned it was dangerous. Not only did I get attacked, but I was afraid of losing the love of my sisters who I wanted to love me. And then I was thinking, maybe, is this for real? Is this something I can trust or believe is going on for me? And when I checked in and I said, if I succeed, if I get a lot of attention, am I still afraid that my sisters are going to be angry? And I could feel, yes, I could feel I am still worried. And what was strange is that I have been good friends with my sisters for decades by this point. Luckily, we had a really nice relationship. I still do with the one who's still alive. And yet, I realized this was a foundational experience that had a long-lasting impact that was getting triggered every time the attention was on me. It didn't matter if I was introducing a song from the stage or if I was going on video or if I was leading a dance class. Every time the attention was on me, there was a part of me inside that said, remember, this is dangerous. And it would send me into a panic. And then once I realized, oh my gosh, it's not about what's going on in the present. I mean, sometimes we do have, nasty individuals in front of us, but for most of the time, we don't. We have very civil, kind people, around us, if you give a talk or you're on a podcast or you're, even when I'm on TikTok, I mean, yes, I've gotten trolls, but for the most part, people don't bother with me if they don't like what I'm saying. They comment with nice things. When I was performing, no one ever said anything nasty to me from the audience, and yet I was terrified. So once I realized that I had things from the past, not just my sisters, but being bullied at school makes you feel like people don't like you. If you have a mean teacher who didn't get you and they embarrassed you in front of a lot of people, if kids laughed at you, or even if you saw kids laughing at somebody else, that can be traumatic for you because you think, I don't want that to happen to me. So what I discovered is that everybody has their own stories, but the fear of speaking in public is not random. There is always a cause. Now, it could be that you come into it completely neutral, blank slate, and you simply don't have the skills like you spoke about, Joe. You said, I never was afraid. I just wasn't very good. Well, of course you weren't very good because it's like, do you expect to go out on the tennis court and be very good at tennis? No. It's the same with public speaking. Of course we're not very good until we learn the skills. But if you have enough skills, let's say you're doing a presentation and you're practicing over and over and over again, your material, you're friends with the people that you're presenting to, the team or whatever, and you're still anxious, it's not about that presentation. It's not about those people. It's about stuff from the past that's getting triggered. And this is what I love about the work that I do is that these things, whether or not we're aware of them or not, they're affecting us. But when you go to speak in public and you realize, oh my God, this is anxiety provoking, it's a real gift and opportunity to see what it's pointing to, because those are the things from the past that have not yet been resolved.
Now, I'm thinking there's people listening saying, oh my gosh, like, yes, okay, I'm getting triggered. I realize that this is bigger than the actual situation. What are some first steps people can take when they recognize that to improve their public speaking, reduce their anxiety and worry?
Well, I think, improving your public speaking happens when we, number one, reduce our anxiety and worry. And we reduce our anxiety and worry when we look at what are we worried about. So for one way to do it is to kind of follow the thread. So let's say someone says, well, I'm afraid of being judged. Then you say, okay, where in your life have you been judged? And when's the earliest time you can think about being judged? Was it your parents? Was it in school? I mean, we're all judged in school. I think most of us have some school trauma in us because we're scrutinized for every move we make and penalized for every mistake. And the best grades are given for making the fewest mistakes, which it creates a lot of anxiety and stress. When we're speaking, we're needing, so you do improv. We talked earlier before we got on that you like to do improv. Improv is all about exploration and experimentation and using whatever comes up. You often don't know it's going to come out, and you have to kind of think on your feet, and whatever it is, you use it. That is one of the beauties, I think, about speaking, because we are improvising from the time we wake up in the morning until we go to sleep at night. So we're always mostly making up what we say throughout the day. It's not about being perfect. It's about being in the moment. It's about being responsive to what is happening. It's about building from what we're given. That's another improv principle of yes and. So if you look at speaking as something you have to do perfectly, it's going to get in the way of you being able to be in that moment with yourself. So what we're looking at here is what's keeping us from being present. What keeps us from being present is the past experiences that led us to believe that we weren't okay. We weren't good enough. We weren't smart enough. We weren't pretty enough. We weren't handsome enough. We weren't old enough. We weren't young enough, or whatever it is that we're not enough of, and to resolve those things so that they're not coming into play as we're trying to be in the present moment in our speaking. So is it being judged? Is it that no one's interested in me? I've had clients that, parents were just busy working 2 jobs. They come home, they're tired, they put food on the table. They didn't have the capacity to say, how was your day? And these clients would grow up feeling, no one's interested in me. No one wants to hear what I have to say. So even when parents are, we can have traumas without having it be abuse. We can have inadvertent traumas that lead us to believe that people aren't going to be interested in us, that we don't want to be a burden and take up too much time. So we end up talking really fast so that we get it over with and we don't take up people's time. We might mumble, we might, shrink away or just avoid, just stay in the background because we don't want to compete because we had a really large family, a loud family, and we felt like I don't want to compete with everyone for airtime. So you just learn to be in the background. So there's so many different variations on this theme. The point being, whatever you feel is your story, address it. Open up your journal. Talk about with yourself, like, what went on? What was going on? What made me feel that way? What did I conclude from the way I was treated about myself? And did I need to make that conclusion about myself? So these are the things that I would say first is investigate it, get to know it. And then ultimately, I think that it's not enough to know what went on. We have to clear it away. And how you clear it away could be multiple ways. I feel like I have my own favorite modalities. I use a lot of emotional freedom technique, otherwise known as tapping or EFT, creative visualization, forgiveness. I tend not to do a lot of talking about the relationship or the situation, but gather enough information from a situation in order to mm, create a journey of release through the emotional freedom technique. So that's what I like to do. And sometimes I get people who have a particular modality. I had a songwriter who was a client, and I would have him write, after a session, I'd say, so write a song about what it was like to grow up and feel neglected and lonely. And every session, that would be one of his tasks, was to write a new song. And so he had a kind of like a series that reflected his journey back to wholeness.
Mm. From new patients faced with an empty lobby and no idea where to find their therapist, to clinicians with a session running overtime and the doorbell ringing, some of the most anxiety-ridden moments of a therapy appointment happen before a session even starts. This episode's sponsor, the Receptionist for iPad, helps you tackle some of that pre-appointment apprehension. The Receptionist for iPad is an easy-to-use digital client check-in system that helps your visitors check in securely to their appointments and notify their practitioners of their arrival via SMS, email, or your preferred channel. No more confusion, endless lobby checking, or having clients sign in on paper logbooks. Start a 14-day free trial of the Receptionist for iPad by going to thereceptionist.com/practice. Make sure to start your trial with that link, and you'll also get your first month free if you decide to sign up. Again, start your trial over at thereceptionist.com/practice. I want to ask about getting involved on TikTok. Probably 6 months ago, I was on TikTok for a while during like 2020 and 2021, and then at least what I was being fed, their algorithm was just kind of trashy. I didn't enjoy it. And so I left TikTok for a while, and then about 6 months ago came back, and it feels like the algorithm is much more accurate to, the kinds of things that I'm interested in. What drew you to TikTok, and tell me a little bit about that experience.
I was drawn to TikTok by a friend of mine who did a little experiment with posting both on TikTok and Instagram. And her TikTok videos got 10 to 20 times the visibility. And I just thought, okay, I'm going to try that. I went on, and I had, it was, I think 2021, had a very favorable boost from the platform. I think my first video got 250,000 views. And
Oh my word.
yeah, really. So that was a nice start. That was very encouraging. And so I kept going with it. And then I got a couple of more videos, one that got over 1 million views, another one got 3.5 million views with like 2,000 comments. It actually was it was a lot overwhelming, because here I was, someone who wanted to respond to every person who commented. And when you have 2,000 views, I thought, how do you even do that? So it was, I realized that it's a nice thing to go viral. It feeds your ego. It makes you feel like people are, interested. But if you don't have the capacity to really engage with people on that level, it's almost a lost opportunity, I think.
Mm.
I actually, I built up my following over a year, and then I got COVID, became kind of lethargic for a while, and felt like I didn't feel like going back on social media for a long time. And so I was kind of sporadically going on and off in TikTok. About a year later, I hadn't gotten on consistently like I was on for the first year. And I got invited to speak at a conference on building a TikTok following. I thought, okay, my message to get back on and see how I can rebuild this audience. And what I discovered is that TikTok was a completely different kind of a platform, kind of like in a reverse way that you're talking about. Yes, it's better about serving you who you're interested in. But I think as a creator, it's not as favorable as it used to be because now they've got programs for you to advertise or boost your video. So they rather you pay to get that visibility than to give it to you organically. And now they have TikTok Shop and they have various different programs that they're that make the algorithm more complicated for a creator. So I feel like since I've been on for the past 8 to 10 months, I haven't grown my following, but I have an engaged following. So I'm curious. I don't know what to make of that. It still feels like it's a platform I really enjoy. I just like using it. I like creating on the platform. I love the editing part of the software. It makes it fun and easy. And I'm satisfied when people tell me that, they had to speak that day and they went to my videos to listen to me talk and it made them feel better about doing their presentation or, so as long as I feel like I'm making an impact, I'm
Yeah.
happy.
Now, I know a lot of people are like, I want to go viral or I want to have 100,000 followers or something like that. That's going to help my bottom line. So we have a bunch of therapists, psychologists, counselors listening. Who do you think it would make sense for them to put their time into TikTok where you're like, yeah, this will probably lead to more sales, more opportunities? And who would you say, no, it's probably just a waste of time?
Well, I think that you have to feel like you want to have a bigger impact. And that's what it's really going to give you. It's going to give you access to people who wouldn't otherwise see you. So if you are someone who wants a business model where you've got your seats filled and you've got your seats filled, it's like, why move beyond that? If that's, what makes you happy. But if you're feeling like I have an approach, I have something that I think is special that I'm adding to the conversation, then I'd say go for it. If you feel like you're doing something that is unique to you, that your clients are benefiting from, then other people would benefit from. So I'd say try it out. Now, everything in life is an experiment. So it doesn't mean that just like you tried it out and then stopped. You don't have to be married to it, but you can give yourself a few months, let's say, and see how it goes for you. Don't expect, I wouldn't, I actually have a little TikTok course that I made that's completely out of, um, well, it's a couple of years old, so it's not up to date. But I think the principle that I talk about in it it still applies. Do research first. Look up other people talking about the things you're talking about, see what's working, see what their titles are, see how long their videos are, and make a plan. I always used to say before you go on TikTok, make 5 videos that you're going to post and put them in your draft. And then so that you can, for 5 days in a row, put out one video. Because I think that if you're a new creator on the platform, they still do give you the benefit of a doubt. They want you to succeed because they want you to stay. But if you just like post once and then don't come back for a couple of weeks, you're going to forfeit that little benefit. So make a plan, make videos where I think the best thing to do on TikTok, that things that work for me are showing how I understand my audience. I talk about the things that they're worried about. Like, does this happen to you? Do you feel this way? Um, if you're feeling this way, maybe it's because of this, so things that people will say, oh yeah, that's how I feel. People are very eager to raise their hand and say, me too. So I think those are really good videos to make. Other videos that are really good to make are what I call myth busters. So I think one of my very first video was, there's that acronym FEAR, fear. What is it? I can't remember what it stands for, but it's the idea of feel the fear and do it anyway. And so I put that out, that people are always saying, feel the fear and do it anyway. And what I don't like about that and what I think is wrong about that. And it was, so something that's controversial, I think also does really well. So put out your ideas, take a stand on something, and don't be afraid of people not agreeing with you. One of the things I really loved about my first viral video is that there were some people who were saying, this isn't true, blah, 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 blah. And then my other followers were saying, well, she wasn't saying that exactly. They were standing up for me and they were having conversations among themselves. And I really appreciated that. And I think that happens when you are willing to say, not everyone's going to agree with me on this, but this is how I look at it.
Love that. The last question I always ask is, if every private practitioner in the world were listening right now, what would you want them to know?
That getting comfortable speaking is a journey, and that rather than doing something really hard and taking a leap that feels outside your comfort zone, I would say, look where your comfort zone already is and stretch it out. So if that's talking with your friends or your colleagues or your family members, let yourself become more aware of how you express yourself in those situations, in those comfortable places, and allow yourself to experiment and play more and be more goofy or playful or dramatic. That you can, the more that you explore who you are and being more authentically or more experimentally you in those places that already feel safe, you will find yourself bringing that ability to the new arena.
So awesome, Linda. If people want to connect with you, follow your TikTok, where should we send them?
Well, I'd love for people to continue the conversation with me. And I have a download that is a free checklist for how to prepare before you speak. And this is something that people don't even think about, like warming up your voice and opening your body and doing some visualization that puts your energy and your mind and your focus in the right place. So whatever speaking you're doing, you're going to bring out your best. And you can get that at lindaugelow.com/rituals. And my name is Ugelow, lindaugelow.com/rituals.
So awesome. Linda, thank you so much for being on the Practice of the Practice podcast.
Joe, so nice to be here.
So wherever your private practice speaking journey takes you, I hope you settle into some of that advice. As I've become more comfortable with myself through this podcast, through public speaking, honestly, through doing improv, I've realized that in my daily life, in my daily speaking with people, with my friends, with neighbors, I have entertaining conversations, we laugh. I don't take myself crazy serious. And the more that I can bring that natural posture into my professional work, for one, it feels more authentic and aligned because it's who I genuinely am instead of trying to be something I'm not. When I go back to some of my first podcasts, you can just hear that I'm trying to prove myself, just say like, accept me, I'm worthy, I should be here. But over time, when we realize we're all curious, we're all exploring, we're all looking for things that can better our lives. And that's what a lot of public speaking is. So I hope you take some of this advice. I hope you follow Linda on TikTok. I hope that you just think through what your next steps are. And also, we couldn't do the show without our amazing sponsors. The Receptionist for iPad is our sponsor today. From new patients faced with an empty lobby and not knowing where to go, feeling anxiety, that doesn't have to be the case. The Receptionist for iPad is an easy-to-use digital client check-in system. You've probably seen this at your doctor's office where you just kind of check in and then next thing you know, they're saying your name. Same sort of thing, but for your counseling practice. You can try it totally for free for 14 days just by going to thereceptionist.com/practice. Again, that's thereceptionist.com/practice to start your free trial of the Receptionist for iPad. Thank you so much for letting me into your ears and into your brain. Have an amazing day. I'll talk to you soon. Special thanks to the band Silence is Sexy for that intro music, and this podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the producers, the publishers, or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.